Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. Hope everyone is doing well out there this morning and having a great start to your Friday and a great week out there so far. We're, pretty much to the end of it, about to enter our weekend, so that's always great. Here to give you some updated information on what's going to happen weather-wise for your Friday into your Friday night. We'll even go into our Saturday for certain areas of the country. We'll do that. We'll talk about a couple things going on, a little bit of winter weather and sections of the Northeast. Really, you pretty much got to get into Maine and even the higher elevations of Vermont, New Hampshire, and even New York State before you really see any winter weather. We have a warm system in the Northeast, and it's definitely all rain for southern New England and for a lot of people where it should be snowing or having some sort of a wintry weather this time of the year, but, here we are. We got a little rain, across the south we'll speak on. We'll kind of give you some updated information on how much rain we could see today, and we'll talk about a system that is entering the Pacific Northwest this morning, give you some updated information on that also. Towards the end of the video, we will give you some updated information on the severe weather threat for tomorrow. I kind of mentioned in last night's video that I thought that this would not increase. If anything, it would decrease, but it's definitely stayed about the same. In fact, we are in range of the HRRR model, and it looks a little bit, I wouldn't say worrisome, but it definitely has that look that supports a higher threat for severe weather across areas of the Deep South. So we'll speak on that a little bit at the end of the video, and then we'll give you some updated information on this winter storm potential across sections of the Northeast. Quick reminder, I want to have a video this evening. I'm going to take the night off. I'm going to take my wife out on the date night, get some food, enjoy each other like any husband and wife should do. So we're definitely going to enjoy the night. So no video tonight, and I'm not going to speak on in this video anything else on the pattern coming up. I've done that many times over the last few videos, but just going to take a break on it. We'll do it again tomorrow, probably tomorrow night especially, and we'll take a look at what we're seeing out there. But don't want to talk it to death. There's no point in doing that, especially when we're talking about something in the longer range that's going to change many times. But we will continue to feed you guys information on that. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about, pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling out there. A lot of rain across the Northeast, sections of Michigan, all the way back to Iowa, as we have this kind of a broad, long system affecting this area of the country. It is cold enough in like Maine, even sort of the northern sections of Vermont and New Hampshire for a little bit of winter weather, a little bit of ice ongoing. In fact, we could have a significant icing event in some of these isolated favored regions in like Vermont, New Hampshire, maybe even certain sections like the Adirondacks and even into Maine. A heavy wet snow potential for Maine. This is starting to move in right now. So 4 to 6 inches of heavy wet snow in this area is possible. Definitely won't be that dry snow you guys are used to this time of the year. A little bit of rain across the south that you see, not a big deal. And then we have a little area of moisture, and this is kind of the beginning stages of our system that will bring the severe weather threat for the Deep South tomorrow and eventually bring a winter storm risk for the Northeast later into this weekend, into early next week. And then we have another system entering the Pacific Northwest. Nothing really unusual with this, but it's definitely going to make for a pretty soggy weekend for a lot of folks in the western sections of Oregon and Washington State and Northern California, so we'll speak on that. Storm Prediction Center today, the severe weather risk really isn't there. Just a long, pretty much huge, broad area of just a general risk of thunderstorms that basically expand across the entire south from Texas, Oklahoma, all the way to the coastal regions of North Carolina. Excuse me. And, no real severe weather threat with this today, but we could have some thunderstorms. Not a big deal today, though, as far as severe weather. Excessive rainfall outlook, no moderate risk. We do just have a slight risk in areas of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama that has already got a good bit of rain over the last few days. So that means we have a 15% chance of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles in a given location. And do we have, somewhat of a risk of flash flooding over here in the coastal regions of Oregon and Northern California? Watches, warnings, and advisories. Fog continues. We're having an outbreak of fog, if you will, but that continues to be the dominating feature. If any weather thing is dominating the weather pattern out here, it's fog, and we continue to see that pretty much anywhere. Even the areas where you don't have the gray in your county or area, you're probably still seeing some form of fog. Not everywhere, of course. That would be wild, but a lot of people are dealing with this just because we have a warmer and more moist air mass in the winter, which typically this happens when you get that in the winter and even fall and even early spring. We do have winter weather advisories up for these sections that we're going to see a wintry mix of day and just heavy wet snow, and we'll talk about that when we get to the northeast frame. Still got these flood watches up for central Alabama, northern Georgia, even some flood watches up for areas of Illinois and Indiana, and they are continuing down here in southern Mississippi and southeast Louisiana. Let's talk about the southeast first. It's not very active out there this morning, but what we will watch out for is an area of showers and storms that will start to pretty much take over the southern section of Louisiana, southern Mississippi. Some showers are starting to move into Mobile, Alabama as we get into about midday today, and these will continue to sort of drift northward. And, everybody in Louisiana has a chance to see at least a little bit of rain today. This rain begins to spread into central Mississippi. We start to see some rain even in southwestern, even central sections of Alabama. And by the time we get into this evening, you got any, Friday night activities like myself, and you live, along the Gulf coastline, definitely be aware of some rain. Bring your umbrella, some showers and storms, and it's definitely just not going to feel like a January night anywhere. It amazed me how humid it was yesterday here in South Carolina. And South Carolina wasn't the only state. It's going to be like that again today. It's one thing when you got temperatures that get in the 70s. I've even seen 80 degrees in January in South Carolina. And, you don't have that high humidity. You can feel a little bit of kind of moist in the air, if you will. But when you got dew points that are like something you see in June and early July or something, that is crazy for January. And, it's impressive enough that we're having these really higher temperatures in January, but it seems like we get this at least once every winter for sure. But we call it a January thaw. Sometimes the entire month of February lately has been well above average. I don't think that'll be the case this February, but typically you don't have as much humid air as what we're seeing, and it's just been ridiculous. So we continue to get into the overnight hours. Some of this rain will begin to make its way into Georgia, but, just more rain making its way through the southern half of Arkansas, northern Mississippi, some rain creeping into Memphis. And by the time we're waking up for our Saturday morning, a good chunk of rain is overspreading into Tennessee, the southern Alps, some rain showers in the upstate of South Carolina, Piedmont of North Carolina. Low pressure right here is developing the surface low at the base of this surface trough, and then we're probably about to get a line of storms to get going here in maybe eastern Mississippi, Alabama, eventually Georgia. And we'll speak more on that towards the end of the video. So that's between now and the next 24 hours. Rainfall between now and the next 24 hours. I mean, you're going to get another 2 to 3 inches of rain here in southern Louisiana. 1 to 2 inches of rain probably in southern Mississippi, and just an inch and a half is possible throughout the rest of Mississippi. So, definitely Louisiana, Mississippi, southeast Arkansas will see the most rain. Then we'll start to see some rain overnight into tomorrow morning, into Alabama, into Tennessee, and eventually into Georgia. The northeast today, low right here. So if you got a low right here, you already know this is a warmer system. So we're actually just getting rain, a cold rain across most of New York, Michigan also, into southern Ontario. I mean, we even are waking up to maybe some kind of sporadic downpours across like the mid-Atlantic, Delmarva region. But you can see this heavy snow that will begin to actually fall across southern and southwestern sections of Maine. And we'll go all the way to about 8, 9, 10 a.m. here in the next couple hours. And this is some really heavy wet snow right in here. This is not going to be a fun snow to like shovel. I can tell you that. So when it's snowing at 30, 31 degrees, 29 degrees, that snow is going to be rough to shovel. And thankfully, we're not going to get 12 to 18 inches of heavy wet snow. But, we start to get to about midday, snowing at a pretty moderate to heavy pace into Maine. The only area that probably won't see much of any snow is maybe extreme southern Maine down here, snowing, and you see the kind of the purple and the pink. That is freezing rain, maybe a little sleet. But this will continue, and then we'll get one last push of moisture. Lower elevations in Vermont and New Hampshire will definitely, I would say, stay mainly rain, a cold rain. Could switch back and forth a little bit depending on your elevation, but once you start to get a couple thousand feet up, you're certainly going to have the risk of some heavy wet snow, some ice. We get into this afternoon, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, and it's snowing across most of Maine except maybe, like I said, extreme southern Maine. Then we're going to be dealing with some leftover freezing drizzle, light freezing rain, and the higher elevations of Vermont, New Hampshire, the Adirondacks, but rain in the lower elevations. And this heads on out we could still deal with it into the overnight hours. You see the areas in pink, just some freezing drizzle. You'll have to let me know what you see up there, Robin. I always forget. I think you live in the southern sections of Vermont. I think you do. But let me know what you see from this system. These can always be a little sneaky and not really talked about a whole lot, but they can do some damage. And if you look at the ice totals I'm about to show you, it really shows it. But we're waking up again, tomorrow morning. Still wintry mix ongoing in these areas. Maybe a little cold air works down when you'll end as a little bit of snow here, even in southern Maine. But, snow from this, 4 to 6 inches of snow. Some areas 2 to 3, some areas maybe closer to 6. But this is a wet snow, guys. It really is. Maybe once you start to get into northern Maine, not as wet of a snow, maybe like a drier snow, but definitely a wet thumping of snow, if you will, in these areas. You look at ice. This is going to be the problem in Vermont, New Hampshire, the Adirondacks. You're going to have some areas that try to get a quarter to a half an inch of ice. And so definitely be aware of this. And, we can look at these areas. This is the National Weather Service out of Burlington, Vermont. Not a whole lot of snow when you get down to the southern sections of Vermont, but Stowe, 1 inch, Newport, 2 inches. Not a lot of snow. But you look at the ice graphic from this, and what stinks is there's not really any towns in these heavy hit ice areas. But once you start to get into the higher elevations like east of Rutland, west of Springfield, east of Manchester, you start to get into those quarter inch. So any of these kind of small towns and communities in these higher elevations run the risk of significant icing. But of course, in these valley regions, Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, you're not going to get as much ice, maybe at Clays. But man, you just climb up a little bit in elevation, you're going to start to see a lot of ice on the trees. We go up here to the National Weather Service out of Maine, Great Maine here. And there it is, 4 to 6 inches of snow in Auburn, Maine. I didn't even know there was an Auburn, Maine, but now we know. Freiburg, I think that's how you pronounce it, 4 to 6 inches of snow. Portland, 1 inch or less. You can tell there's just not calling for much. Plymouth, 2 to 3 inches of snow. Littleton, 1 to 2 inches of snow. But, you look at the ice graphic from this, and once again, not a lot of higher populated areas are going to get hit by this ice, so that's good. But, you're definitely going to get some ice in Plymouth probably too. A little bit of a glaze. Not as much once you get into Maine where it's just more cold air aloft. So definitely be aware of that quick hitting system that's already moving in right now. You look at the south central U.S. and a little bit of rain will get going later this morning. There it is, becoming a little bit more widespread, and this becomes heavy too. Northern Texas, southern and really southwest Oklahoma, the rain begins to fall. Maybe a little bit of cold air wrapping into this enough to maybe mix with some wet snowflakes here in the panhandle of Texas. It's very possible. And you keep this going and kind of this moisture pull out the Gulf, and then this system kind of starts to flirt with one another, get close to one another here. And we start to get some snow, not snow, but rain into Oklahoma City, Tulsa, light to moderate rain at first, later this afternoon, this evening, could pick up in intensity. And then you get a little gnarly little spin over Oklahoma, North Texas, and just bringing some moderate rain across the region. And then by the time we're getting into our Saturday morning, this is kind of fully into Arkansas and moving on out of Oklahoma by the time we get into midday tomorrow. So we could get some rain off this for sure, between now and let's just go on all the way out to about Saturday midday. There's going to be a pocket of 1 inch, maybe 2 inches of rain right in this region, right in here. Maybe an inch of rain in Oklahoma City, a little under that in Tulsa. So more rain in this region. This is just rain, no snow with this. North central U.S., we're going to continue just to deal with some light rain throughout the day. Northern Illinois, it'll kind of linger around in eastern Iowa, southern Wisconsin, cross over Lake Michigan, get into lower Michigan later this evening. Just in the form of some light rain. Some areas might be cold enough for a little freezing rain at 31, 32 degrees, maybe some snowflakes. But in general, not a significant rain event and definitely not a significant winter weather event. This will head on out. And we could deal with a little bit more rain as we're waking up for our Saturday morning. Some sprinkles, light rain in Chicago, maybe up to Milwaukee. So we'll watch for that. Out west, we got a system entering the west coast. It's not, totally a big deal at all just because you always get systems into this area, but it's certainly worth talking about. It's a relatively warm system, just cold enough if you get in these higher elevations of the Olympic Mountains in Washington, and certainly cold enough in the upper elevations of the Cascades, but this is one of those systems that only affect northern Cal, Oregon, and Washington until it spreads into the Rockies and obviously brings a little bit of snow, but it gets kind of sheared out, if you will, as it gets into the western Rockies. But this continues into the overnight hours. We continue just to get a slug of rain, and we'll go all the way out on Saturday. The rain shifts a little bit further south, and mainly, Oregon's starting to get a lot of rain tomorrow into tomorrow afternoon. It starts to spread a little bit further south into Northern California as we're getting into our Saturday. And then we start to get into our overnight, well, I would say late Saturday evening, but you continue to get rain in this area. Rainfall between now and Monday morning, basically between now and the rest of the weekend. Several inches of precipitation is possible. You're obviously going to get rain shadowed a little bit in these valley sections, but still, even in those areas, you're going to get a good bit of rain. And of course, the snow is confined to the very high elevations. You got to get pretty high up there, folks. You can tell this is just a warmer system. Even in some of the higher elevations, you're not getting much snow at all from this. So you got to really get on up there. So, if you're, vacationing out here and you just assume it's going to snow, that's not going to be a good system for that, I don't think. But temperatures, very warm. DC will probably flirt with 70 degrees today. The Delmarva region, 60s, low 70s is possible. New Jersey will be a weird state where the southern end of New Jersey might get into the 60s, but you might stay a little cool up in New York City, but still well above average. This is kind of a system where I've said this many times before. Even though you're well above average up here in the Northeast, Maine, it's still cold enough for winter weather. But look at all of Florida into the 70s and 80s. I think you'll get an 80-degree reading maybe in southern South Carolina and eastern Georgia today. I do. I think it's possible. Warm, but it's starting to cool a little bit back down, at least for a period, as you make your way into the western areas of the Deep South. And, a chilly day across the Midwest, Ohio Valley. Nothing unusual, though. It's still a little, I would say, a tick above average. And definitely above average up here in the upper portion of the country. When you're struggling to get highs even, below freezing, your highs are getting well above freezing, you're definitely well above average. You're going to hit 50 degrees probably in areas of the Dakotas, Montana. So this is well above average temperatures, especially in this area of the country. So we do have that slight risk for tomorrow. You see it. It's actually extended all the way to the Gulf coastline now, so including the western panhandle of Florida. It's not extended into Georgia anymore. It does include Birmingham down to Montgomery to Mobile, Alabama. So you do have that slight risk right into here. This is for a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. So we need to be aware of this tomorrow. We'll see if it, is something that increases in confidence that it'll be more significant than what it is right now. But as of now, 5% risk of a tornado. And then you got to get into the southern extent of this risk area to really get the threat of the higher winds. But there's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in any given location in this green area down here. Hail threat, I don't think will be a huge threat tomorrow at all, just the 5% risk. And if you look at the latest HRRR model, we'll start it Saturday morning. Already a lot of heavy rain ongoing in Mississippi, Alabama, and already storms that will likely be ongoing in southeast Louisiana. This will kind of pull out, and I think, as we get to about midday, you kind of got two things happening here. You got storms that are kind of moving through southeast Alabama, the western panhandle of Florida, still in southern Alabama. So this will produce a severe weather threat on its own. And then we got to watch all these storms right here that kind of develop here in western Alabama. Even up here into southern Tennessee. These storms right here, I think, will be the ones that have a shot at producing a tornado. Surface low is kind of ejecting north and northeast way up here. And anything in this area right here will have the ingredients being fed into these storms that produce severe weather. So we'll watch for that. And, I would watch for maybe a little bit of snow mixing in with this in northern Arkansas. I'm just now seeing that, but I don't think it's worth really talking about unless, it starts to show up more. But you just got to watch all these storms. They kind of have that look to them, little semi-discrete cells. Probably going to have some rotating cells into this. It's just anything. Does anything latch? Let's hope not. As they start to get closer to Georgia, they will begin to weaken, but there will still be an ongoing severe weather threat even into western Georgia as we get into tomorrow evening, but I don't think it'll be as big of a deal. But, these storms start getting going about midday in western Alabama, kind of make their way through Alabama throughout the afternoon, early evening, and then they're done by the time we get before midnight. So we will watch for this severe weather threat. We'll get you another update on that tomorrow morning. And then the winter storm risk, here it comes. This is around late Saturday evening. So the same system that's producing the severe weather risk for the south starts to move in, and as we get into Sunday morning, there's that snow breaking out over northern PA, southern tier of New York. I think this is the highest confidence area right here. I really do. The backside of this low right here, right into this region right here, does have a chance of switching to snow, maybe in western Ohio, southern sections of, Michigan is very possible. And then as we get into about Sunday midday, there's that heavy wet snow falling across New York State, starting to move into the western, southern New England region. That the more favored inland regions of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, certainly have a potential for some snow. And then I think that this could be a moderate event for Vermont, New Hampshire, maybe all the way up to the Adirondacks, Tuck-Hill Plateau. Now, this is trending a little bit further north, a little bit stronger of a low pressure on the latest Euro from overnight. And then we do have some back-end precipitation. I think this is too warm for any snow, like in these lower elevations of the Appalachian region. But you get into those higher elevations, I think a few inches of wet snow is possible as we get late into Sunday. And then as this thing heads out, little cold air tries to crash back down. You could switch to some heavy snow in Boston right at the end of this event as we are getting into Monday and Monday afternoon, Monday evening. And then it heads on out. And we got to watch the system behind it. Not going to talk about that one right now, though. GFS, here it comes. Kind of the same evolution. It wants to be a little bit more intense with this back end moisture right here with some snow in western and northwestern Ohio. We keep this going, and the GFS is, I think, a little overdone, but it does show some pretty heavy wet snow down into central PA. Certainly into like Scranton, the Poconos, the Catskills, the Berkshires. Starting to get a lot of heavy wet snow, and then we start to make our way into Sunday evening. The GFS is still hanging on to this idea of this back-end precipitation that kind of gets enhanced and wants to try to throw some heavier snow back into central Maryland, kind of southern sections of Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if I buy that. But, as we are getting into Sunday night, the middle of the night Sunday night, it wants to throw some moderate snow for all of southern New England as this pulls away. So if the meat of the system delivers mainly just a mix, rain and Boston, the very end of the system, I do think has a solid chance of producing some wet snow at the end. It's just how much is going to add up. And then this heads on out as we are getting into our Monday evening. How much snow are we talking? We are now just in range of the National Weather Service. It only goes out till Monday morning, though, still snowing in certain areas. And they're already forecasting just a few inches of wet snow in northern PA and the southern tier and the southern Finger Lakes region of New York. Not a lot. You're not going to get a lot. No snow forecast in New York City. It does have this little extension of a dusting of snow down to Philadelphia and to central sections of New Jersey. I think this is possible as this system kind of heads on out, little cold air crashes down. But, you look at my folks in Massachusetts here, and this snow up here is from the first system. But this is what they're calling for through Monday, just Monday morning. Remember, I think through Monday afternoon, Monday evening, you're still going to be snowing here in southern New England. So this isn't for the entire duration of the storm. I would say this is about 70-75% of the storm. A few inches. Somebody get 4 to 5 inches of snow in the Berkshires here, southern Vermont. Valley regions are going to struggle right here in New York, just because this is a system that doesn't have a lot of cold air with it. Long Island going for no snow. Southern Connecticut, no snow based off this forecast. In northern Connecticut, a couple inches, not a whole lot. Going for close to an inch in Boston right now. Not a whole lot with this at all. We look at the blend of all models with this. It's even more stingy with the snow. But, we extend this all the way out. It does show the idea of kind of almost a mini late bloomer. Dumps maybe a quick couple inches of wet snow in Boston. So that's all I got, guys. Remember, just no video tonight. We'll get you some big updates for Saturday. But, yeah, and, we'll continue to break down that pattern. I know there's a lot of people interested, especially my folks here in the Southeast and sections that just have not seen any winter yet. I know that I have a lot of people in Tennessee. I've seen it on here. I've seen it on social media saying we're done with winter. Please let it be over. I feel you, especially, pipes bursting and the awful cold you guys experienced with several inches of snow. Not a lot of people are into that, crazy people like me that, have a passion for the weather or into the snow. Maybe not the pipes bursting, certainly not into that. But, you got to think for you folks, well, we didn't even get crumbs from that system. Not even a crumb, not even flake of snow from that for most of the Southeast. So, we haven't gotten ours. So we want ours, and I wouldn't get annoyed by people pulling for winter for us, but we're certainly hoping for our turn over here. And typically when we get our turn, usually y'all get at least some crumbs from that turn. Now we just saw with this last system that sometimes when you guys get it, we don't get anything. So just keep that in mind. But anyways, just kind of rambling. You guys have a great Friday. I'll be with you tomorrow morning. And have a great start to your weekend. God bless all y'all.